Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Um, Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi. Um, Welcome everyone to our MIAS AP Kashmir chapter monthly seminar series discussions. Today's lecture is mainly on chapter 15, Ibn Arabi Fusus Al Hikam, where we will be touching on mainly the prophecy of um, Jesus in the main title is Wisdom of Prophecy, as depicted by Hazrat Ibn al Arabi Rahmatullah Alayh in his book Fusus Al Hikam, chapter 15. Here, Shaykh Al Akbar teaches us how the form of Gabriel, Mary's mindset at the time, influenced the constitution of Jesus at the time of conception and birth, along with other implications for us. For example, Jesus is bringing to life from the dead. The difference between bringing to sensory life and bringing to life of knowledge. So main focus is, of course, life of knowledge, which is our spiritual rebirth.
Thank you.
That will be main. And so myself and Mark will, um, will basically facilitate. And of course, we want active participation. So Mark is our Vice President Education in Bishara and Miyazapi. So we will discuss. Last session in our last session we focused on Insan Kamil, and in there we had a focus on one slide only on the Ruh related to Insan Kamil. So today we will basically expand on that part. Anyway, before that, I will start with a quotation from the Futuhat, which we call empty our heart. That is basically so that when we are here to drink from Kausar, Al Kausar, which is given to Prophet, and that is the river of or ocean of knowledge. So if we want a cup from there, our cup has to be empty, and that is the heart. So we call it kalimat al-istidad, the preparation. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nufarrigu kulubana minan nazar al-fikri wa najlisu ma'al haqq ta'ala بذكر على بساط الأدب والمراقبة والهدوء وتخيوي لقبول ما يريد علينا منه تعالى حتى يكون الحق تعالى تعليمنا على كشف والتحقيق لما سمعته رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال يقول واتقوا الله ويعلمكم الله والله بكل شيء عليم. Surah Baqarah, verse 282. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن تتقوا الله يجعل لكم فرقانا. Surah number 8, verse number 29. وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِ عِلْمًا. Surah number 20, verse number 114. وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّ عِلْمًا. Surah number 18, verse number 65. And then Ibn Arabi continues, فَعِنْدَمَا تَوَجَّهَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَحِمَامُهُمْ إِلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى وَلَجَعَتْ إليه الحاقت عنها ما استمسك به الغير من دعوى البحث والنظر ونتائج العقول كانت عقولهم سليمة وقلوبهم مطهرة فارغة فعندما كان منهم هذا الاستعداد تجلى الحق لهم معلما فتعالى فأطلعتهم تلك المشاهدات على معاني هذه الأخبار وكلمات دفعة واحدة، وهذا ضرب من دروب المكاشفة. صفحة 314 فتوحات المكية المنسوبية edition مجلة 1 الصفر الثاني. So Mark, do you like to read the English part of it?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We empty our hearts of speculative thought and sit in remembrance, bidhikr, together with the truly real, al-Haq, exalted is he. On the carpet of spiritual tact, bisat al-adab, inner attention, muraqaba, presence, hudur, and willingness to receive whatever comes from him, exalted is he. So that it is the truth itself, exalted is he who is in charge of teaching us by means of unveiling, kashf, and spiritual realization, tahqiq. And this is because they have heard in the Quran God's saying, be conscious of God and he will instruct you. If you have a reverent awareness of God, he will grant you discernment, furqan, and say, Lord, increase me in knowledge. Increase me in knowledge. Lord, increase me in knowledge. And we have taught him knowledge coming directly from us. Ilm ladunni. When they have directed their hearts and spiritual aspirations to God and truly have sought refuge in him, renouncing any dependence on the claims, pretensions, da'wah of investigation, bahth, speculation, nazar, and the results of intellectual thought, nata'ij al-uqul, then their intellects are free, salima, and their hearts purified and empty. Once they have this inner receptivity, isti'adad, the truly real is disclosed, tajalla, to them, instructing them directly. And that contemplation, mushahada, reveals to them all at once, by means of immediate interior vision, the inner meanings of the news, messages, communication, akhbar, and the words in question. Ibn Arabi al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah, Book 1, 89, 26 to 30.
Shukran.
Shukran.
Shukran. So আজকে the one we will do is الفصل الإيساوي فصل حكمة نبوة في كلمات الإيساوية. فصل حكمة نبوية في كلمات الإيساوية. So as I mentioned that the wisdom of prophecy in the word of Jesus, or the wisdom of elevation and exaltation, the chapter of Jesus, Ibn Arabi, Fusus Al Hikam. So do you want to introduce Mark with a poem, the one in the middle
Yes.
of the chapter, so that our mind just attune it the same way we wanted to empty our heart and mutawajjah, right? At divine revelations, yeah?
Yes. So this is the second poem in the chapter, and it goes like this. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If it were not for him, and if it were not for us, that which is would not have been. And we are servants in truth, and God is master of us, Maulana. And we are the same as him. So know this whenever you say human being, insana. So do not be veiled by the human being, for he has provided you with proof, burhana. So be real and be created, and you will be, through God, all compassionate, Rahmana. Nourish his creation through him, and you will be a joyful repose and reviving scent, Raihana. That's from the Quran 56, lines 88 to 89. We give him that by which he appears in us, and he gives to us. Atana. Thus the affair comes to be apportioned through him and us. Iyana. That which knows gives him life through my heart when he gives us life. Ahyana. In him we are created beings, potential entities, and temporal moments. Azmana. In us it is not always so, but only at times. Ahyana.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. I will actually wanted to read that in Arabic as well, this poem,
Yeah.
because as you see, the last word is na,
Yeah.
nun alif, right?
Hmm.
Say, as you mentioned, Rahmana, Burhana, Rayhana, Atana, so Insana. So let me read the whole the poem written by Ibn Arabi in Arabic in his book Fusus Al Hikam. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. فلولا ولولانا لما كان الذي كان فإنا عابد حقا وإن الله مولانا وإن عينه فاعلم إذا ما قلت إنسانا فلا فلا تهجب بإنسان فقد آتيك برهان فقد آتاك برهان فكن حقا وكن خلقا تكن بالله رحمانا وقد خلقه منه تكن روحا وريحانا.
Mm.
That is the one you said, that beautiful word, right? Repose,
Yes.
refreshing repose.
Yes.
Yeah. فأعطيناه ما يبدو به فينا وأعطانا فصار الأمر مقسوما بإياه وإيانا فأحياه الذي يدري بقلبه حين أحيانا فكنا فيه أكوانا وأعينا وأزمانا وليس بدائم فينا ولكن ذاك أحيانا. That's very beautiful, yeah.
Very beautiful.
So do you want to briefly reflect on those lines briefly? What do you suggest?
Yes, I think that one of the things that we were told and listened to when we were studying this poem is that the first word in the poem, Noor, is fa.
Fa, yeah, fa.
Ah, so that has a very powerful sense of being entered into the whole world of the poem. And the very last words of the letters of the poem are ana.
Yeah,
So if you put them together, you have fana.
yeah,
So the whole spirit of the poem is that that which we normally think of as ourselves is the focus shifts from that to him. And when that happens, then the whole world of what the poem is about begins to come alive. And in a way, Noor, you mentioned this question of bringing to life. Jesus is well known for bringing to life the dead in a sensory way,
Yeah.
but also we're talking about coming alive in knowledge of
Mm,
him or
mm.
in his knowledge.
Yeah.
So in a way, this poem is beginning to. It's only the second poem in the book. In the chapter there are three poems, and each one is the beginning of like a kind of entrance into a world of proposition as to what is the potential of the real pure servant of him. Uh, we are all servants in truth, as it says in the poem. We are servants in haqqan, I think it says.
Yeah.
And we know that the we, the plural there, is both, has both an inner and an outer aspect. The outer aspect is yes, every single person on earth has been created and is a servant of God, whether they know it or not. The people who come to know through believing, through faith, through iman, or through arifness, uh, they have a different way, if you like. That they can range from believers through to people like arifs who know by direct experience. They know him by direct experience. But the believer is no less a servant than the arif. It's just a matter of degree of fana in a way. So the pure servant is the one who reflects utterly and completely all the names, the unlimited number of names and the most beautiful names of God without any of them being distorted in the mirror that is the heart of the pure servant. So this poem is really drawing our attention to that potential which is in every single person. It doesn't mean to say that everyone will be activated like that, but even knowing that that's the case helps to strengthen tawakkul, trust in God, and strengthen the certainty, the yaqeen that it is possible, and that if one is ready to receive, if one has the istidad for it, then if God so wills, it will happen. All we can do is put ourselves in the way of it. This to me is the message, well, one of the messages of this poem to us, the readers. So it's very, there's something very positive about about allowing ourselves to enter into it because it's addressing us in the most direct manner that if we allow it to go straight to the heart and says, your heart beyond its chest, beyond all the layers, is pure and it can receive him. My believing servant, goes the Hadith Qudsi, is the one in whose heart I can be myself. I believe that's how it goes. So the middle part of the poem, I think where he says, nourish his creation through him, and you will be a joyful repose, rest, and a scent, a reviving scent. And there you have the notion, I don't know if it's the same in Arabic, of the muhi. Muhi. We know the Shaykh Al Akbar is Muhi al-Din Ibn Arabi. So here we have this other kind of revivification of bringing to life in knowledge, not just sensory, not just being dead and coming to life. I don't know how you'd call it, sensory life, but coming to life in knowledge so that not only are we alive, but we are truly alive because we know what we have been created for, which is to worship and be of service to Him. So this is the beautiful thing. And I think that that phrase coming straight from the Quran would alert any readers to the depth of the meaning of what is intended for the human being, for the pure servant of God. And even if we are only aspiring to that, it's the most wonderful turning, like the tawab to him. So there, I think I couldn't say anything more at the moment, Noor, but I'd be very happy if you had something to say uh, about that.
Yes, yes. As you mentioned, every line of the poem
Mm.
started with fa,
Mhm.
and
Every line.
every line
Oh.
also ended with nun alif na.
Mm.
So first line falawla ho, if it were not for him,
Mm.
walawla na, if it were not for us.
Mm.
Then he said lamma kana alladhi kaana, that which is would not been. That means which is would not have been. That means the being we are, we could not be a being if it is not for him. Him means, of course, uh, yeah, but in Quran it says, "Oma khalaqna insana, Oma khalaqtul jinna wal insa illa liyabdun." Oma khalaqtu, I have not created jinn and insan except to worship me, right?
Beautiful. Yeah,
So
that's it.
here he created us for him,
For him.
and also he created the universe for us,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that's what, and also this particular poem, it start with fa, and one of the translator who is a famous professor, Pablo Benito, he's a professor in the University of Murcia where Ibn Arabi was born.
Uh,
In that city, that university professor, who is of course an Ibn Arabi specialist, he said that this fa means fahwaniya, because this word Ibn Arabi used in many places. Fahwaniya, and fahwaniya means divine speech.
mm,
Fahwaniya means divine speech. And then and na nun alif is this, it can be us, it can be ana.
oh,
So
could you say a
uh,
bit more, Noor? Could
eh,
you just say a bit more about that? It can be us and
us,
Anna.
ana, yeah. So
I.
so
Okay.
say, so you know lana, when
Mm,
we said maulana,
mm,
our master, right?
mm, mm.
Ana, maulana, nahanu. Nahanu means we,
Ah,
us is na, right?
mm,
Laqad karramna bani Adam. We we honored the bani Adam, right? So that's the na, karram na, nun alif, okay?
mm,
And then ana is the one which in the third line, on the fourth line of the poem, where Stephen Hardenstein, when he was explaining this verse, he was saying fakad ataka burhana. This ata to alif and ha points to the surah Taha. Surah
ah,
Taha has a this 20 surah number, which is Taha, and verse number 14, Innani anallah. So here, Allah is introducing to Moses through a sound. When Moses went looking for his needs, which is the fire, and then he saw a burning bush from a distance, and when he came near to that bush, Allah talked to him, spoke to him,
mm,
right?
mhm,
That Ana is the one, Aniya, which we explained in our last lecture. I said 5 stages of Insani Kamil. First stage is the Aniya, which is the Ana. That Ana is the one God has manifested through us.
mhm,
That's why first time we say that I,
mm,
my body, everything is mine, my house, my wife, my children, my car, my everything is I, we relate to us.
mm,
So that miness or that I-ness
mm,
is what this nun alif is. And then that word you said, um, joyful repose and reviving descent. You know that Quranic verse, Rauhan wa Rayhana. That Rauhan is the joyful repose, and when that Rauh, the new Ruh, or the the reviving happen, right? That's when this repose comes in, and
Uh-huh.
the way the Raihan means perfume, the way perfume bring joyful repose in us when we smell any attar, any perfume, right?
Mhm.
So that's what main word we will be focusing is this reviving part. Yeah, because
So
that
is
is
it
one of
correct,
the. Hmm?
Noor, is it correct to link it to muhi, even though the
Yes,
word
yes,
is
yes.
Raihan? Yeah.
Because muhi is related to the high,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Muhi is related to the high,
mm,
and who Muhi is the giver of life,
mm,
right?
mm,
So and then Ruh is what give the life,
mm,
manifest the spirit,
mm,
that Ruh brings the life
mm,
to the um, you know this body
mm,
cannot function without the life.
mm,
So that is what the Ruh brings. And of course, Muhi is which is the source of that high,
mm,
right?
mm,
So that's the link of this high and Ruh and then Muhi.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want to now invite the audience to
Mm,
start talking about um, what they have captured from our discussion?
yes.
Um, Whether they want to start participating, and then we can go into the chapter talking about what prophecy um, Jesus brought to us, and also the prophecy prophet gave us about him, his coming again.
Uh-huh.
So he's coming. He was a prophet. He came as a prophet. Now
Mm,
he will come as an awliya, as a saint.
mm,
So of course we can discuss about this very beautiful discussions Ibn Arabi made about Nubuwa and Wilaya,
mm,
because Ibn Arabi's terminology, Nubuwa is the prophethood, which this word Naba,
mhm,
meaning news, announcement, and so it indicates reception of divine news, passive receptivity to divine knowledge,
mm,
and then Wilaya, which is the came from Wali, this Allah's name.
mm.
So guardianship, intimacy, authority,
Friendship.
friendship, yeah. To be near, to be governed, to govern, Wali conveys proximity to God, spiritual authority, and inner mastery. Whereas Risala, the difference between Nubuwa and Risala is basically meaning to send, emphasizes transmission, the act of delivering divine communication.
Mm,
So he was Jesus received a Risala as well, because he brought this kitab or Injil or Bible, and in Ibn Arabi's terminology, Nubuwa is a maqam, is a Nubuwa is a station of divine disclosure. It is not eternal but temporal, because Vilaya is basically uh, permanent, because it's eternal. That is a station also. But so that's what we can discuss if it comes on. But at this stage, what prophecy Jesus brought to us through his messages, that is our total focus today, and main focus is on this, his title Ruhullah. Why God has mentioned him as a Ruhullah, the spirit of a divine spirit. Why that title has been given, just like Ibrahim alayhi salam has been given Khalilullah, Musa has been given Kalimullah, Isa has been given this laqab, this title, Ruhullah. Uh, and what that mean? Those sort of question we can ask, and what Ibn Arabi's view and our understanding on that. Let's go into our interactive participations. So, Professor Yusuf Amin, bhai, if you want, you can start, or even Dr. Maruf Shah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu
I
alaikum.
thank you, thank you very much. Actually, I'm sorry for that, but I joined a bit late, so I missed the early part of your presentations. So please give me another 5 or 6 minutes. I'll gather what was said earlier uh, by the comments, and then I'll very much like to contribute if
No, no,
something
that's fine.
comes to
That's fine. Yeah,
if something,
basically, our today
something
this.
comes to my mind.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yes,
that's
please.
very good. That's very good. The way this particular session today has eventuated. Originally, Frank was, of course, our MIAS Peace Secretary General, and he organizes this seminar. And there was a particular presenter who had to shift it. As a result, he was about to let this go. But as Prophet said, do good things, one a small thing regularly, and if you do regularly, then baraka flow through to all of you. So, we have here in Maruf Shah station has three attendees, and the other every skin has one attendee, and each attendee has two angels, which is Kiraman Katibin. So we have a attendance of angels, as Allah promised that when my name is uttered, I am remembered. If you remember me in a small group, I remember you in a bigger group. So it's an opportunity, it's a set calendar. And as you know, in Quran, it says Mau'izatun Hasana, which is Quran, which is basically Allah has sent us, was nasihat, we call it, was nasihat. So Mau'iza is related to was. So that Mau'iza is the where divine remembrance has been communicated, divine risala has been communicated to us, and we discuss. And Fusus is nothing but a tafsir of the Quran, because we talk about Quranic interpretation of how the poet, various prophets brought divine messages to us. So 27 prophet mentioned in Quran is discussed in detail by Ibn Arabi. And as you know, this book is a book, though Ibn Arabi authored it, he's saying that that book was given to him by Prophet. So as a result, he said, I just even chapter arrangement was also, he said, I didn't do it, because if I did it, I could have done it historically. But here, Isa is not the prophet before Muhammad. As you see, the way it has been is after Uzair. Fasul Uzair is the 14th chapter, and Fasul Isavi is 15th chapter. He said that I didn't arrange it. That's how it came. So you understand what I'm referring to, and so we didn't wanted to let go this time slot where angels come, where we remembered. So I said to Mark, say, yeah, don't let's start doing interactive session as opposed to a formal presentation. So that's why we set a theme and a topic, and we started it with a poem in that chapter, and we will now jointly study the chapter. And that's the main objective. Yeah. So Maruf Shah, brother, do you want to ask any question, whatever we have discussed so far, or if you want to add anything from the chapter?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you so much. I was basically wondering when we are discussing Muhi, yes, Muhi. I am reminded of how is Christ fundamentally what we can call equivalent of life, life-giving force. There is a book by Panikar on unknown Christ of Hinduism. I was reminded of, can we develop Ibn Arabi's his reflections on this Jesus, especially he has, his whole Silsila Wilaya has it is technically considered Iswi. So it is fundamental that Wilaya in this Ibn Arabi, he is basically trying to revive in his own way. My point is, when we identify, Quran says about Jesus, Ruhullah. So when we define Ruh as something which gives life or which helps life get expressed, so then can we make an equivalence from Ibn Arabi's point of view that wherever life springs, wherever life flowers, life blooms, that is the basically blooming of Christic consciousness. And Jesus is that manifesting principle itself. So that makes Ibn Arabi's reading of Jesus very universal. So and that makes possible dialogue with not only Hindus and Christians but other across traditions, since we know God himself is fundamentally defined as Muhi, one who gives life. And when we identify Jesus as Ruhullah, and Ruh we define in terms of someone who gives life, and ultimately in Sufi parlance we find Muhammad as the manifesting principle, something which is praised, and which in fact also identifies it with the deeper springs of life. In fact, Durud Salam in Islamic tradition ultimately is what fosters life, what helps life bloom. Durud is not just recitation of a certain prayer on Prophet Muhammad. It is fundamentally any act, anything which helps life prosper and bloom. So I was just wondering if the thrust of the whole chapter, and if this deliberation is on God as Muhi, and then Jesus as Ruhullah, and vivifying force. Jesus is the name of the vivifying consciousness. So if we do not use the word Jesus, but we use vivifying consciousness, we are saying one and the same thing. I was just wondering if you could elaborate and you could just try to clarify this.
Maruf Shah, thank you. I just want to ask you something in relation to what Noor said earlier. You have stories about Jesus reviving the dead, bringing them to sensory life, and then you have this whole idea of, I think you're alluding to the blooming of life, which to me includes knowing why we're here. You didn't mention the word knowledge in connection with that, but it was implied. Can you say more about the difference between sensory life and this deeper connection to understanding who we are?
Thank you. I think when Ibn Arabi has remarked somewhere that the Quran makes only one distinction between knowers and non-knowers. No other distinction is fundamental to the Quran. And knowledge, in fact, is what, in a way, since the key 7 attributes which which make humans, in a way, vicegerents of God, or who have co-worked with God. In that fundamental, this attribute is knowledge. So the point is, there's a wonderful discussion of this in the book on Ibn Arabi, Shankara, and Eckhart by our scholar, I just forgot the name, who has written a wonderful book comparing the 3 thinkers. And it centers on a discussion of knowledge. So, in fact, since in Christian tradition also there has been a debate precisely how did Jesus revive? Was it just he brought them physically into life again, so what we call sensory life, or he just helped their spirits kindle, or somehow it was more a metaphorical way of saying. But I think we can all agree, encounter with Jesus was yourself. He was, he was, he was now we can say hmm, had a brush with the divine knowledge, which makes man man. In fact, man by definition, insan, the pupil. So the whole idea in Ibn Arabi's, you can say, anthropology revolves around the idea of knowledge, and in fact, it is disappearance of this dimension of knowledge, where knowledge as presence, the sacral connection of knowledge, knowledge as transformative, darshana. In Indian tradition, that has been missing in the mainstream philosophy of, we can say, philosophy departments, academic engagements. Knowledge is no longer transformative, and knowledge is no longer seen as participating in the divine life. To know anything is to be that thing. And that God is the knower in every act of perception. God is a perceiver in every act of perception. Ghazali has explicitly written it. It is only God who perceives a thing. We do not. That's why when we are brought into the fold of Islam, we have to say Shahada. Now, what is that shahada? That is basically primordial, participating in that primordial act of knowing the divine. In a way, so that is how Sufism gets its deepest authentication from the very idea of making shahada, that we say we know God is one. It is just not a declaration. We are participating in that, in a way, act. No, that's an act of knowledge. So that is very deeply, it needs to be much, in a way, with reflections on it. We just could reflect on it. It would solve key problems of epistemology. And the whole Kantian turn, where epistemology was at the center of Western philosophy at the cost of ontology. So if that we would try to restore that ontological dimension, and where knowledge and being are fundamentally one, to know is to be. And that, in fact, is the deep ground of non-dualism.
So, in a way, when we know that the word wujud means, it's translated as being, but it also, I believe, means to find. And when you
Yes, yes,
find something, you found it. It's there.
yes,
It doesn't
yes.
necessarily immediately imply knowledge, but I was thinking of Mevlana's poem, which we've been thinking about, where he says, "Become Mary, receive Gabriel, so that you may give birth to the Jesus of your being." Have you heard that line?
I am reminded of the Korban's treatment of this idea.
Mm.
And in fact, in the context of imamology, he discusses this. I think he develops this much further in his book on two-volume book on Islamic philosophy, and how imams and this very idea, this particular line, I think, almost gets reverberated in his discussion. To give birth to the Jesus of your own. That is so. It is so. It has to be done on daily basis. So Jesus is not to be believed in. Jesus has to be given birth. Jesus has to be birthed by each one of us who take his belief seriously. That's, in fact, it is equivalent is in Sufism, where we say we have to, in a way, experience Maqam Mahmud. We have to see how Muhammad is the ideality of man. We have to be witness to that. So that's why it's such a huge challenge, such a huge task to take faith seriously, as Iqbal and elsewhere remarked. People have taken it so lightly, this submission to God or Islam. It is, in a way, becoming martyr to love. So I just recall his exact words. लोग आसान समझते हैं मुसलमान होना, ये शहादत गाहे उल्फत में कदम रखना, मतलब a martyrdom of love is required to be a Muslim, to be a submitter to truth. So I think I'm so happy that you have brought these lines, you have discussed this.
So the relationship, if you wanted to understand the relationship between Jesus and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so as not to give preference to one over the other, how would you relate them in a way which honors the real situation ontologically, so to speak? How would you relate?
I think it is not an easy question.
No.
Ibn Arabi would self-identify himself, identifying with this Iswi Wilaya, and but at the same time, Muhammad is his central reference. But then
Yes.
deeper down, Muhammad as the manifesting principle of this world, the world of manifestation, he's that connecting link, that principle of manifestation, the Nuri Muhammad with which he brings. So, in traditional Sufi parlance, when we identify with different stages of higher and higher consciousness, when we move and Lataif Sita, we identify Christ with breath, for example.
Breath.
But then when you go to that lotus chakra, that's final chakra, so then that we identify with Muhammadan. But the point is, since
maybe
ontologically Islamic tradition and Sufis would use term Muhammad there, because Muhammad, by definition, the very words Muhammad is what is praised. And now what is praised is wujud in Ibn Arabi's, the way he puts things. Only wujud can be praised. Adam cannot be praised. Now, but when wujud manifests itself, so when we say life, so Jesus comes in. So that is why in Islamic tradition we have been strictly prohibited from comparing Rasul with one another.
Yes.
We should not.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
That is. But at the same time, when we try to name one name which integrates all other prophets, all other principles in some way, we say Muhammad is that.
That's it.
In Muhammad, as Rumi says, in Muhammad, from Adam to Jesus, all prophets are by definition included in that very umbrella term. So there is a beautiful way of reconciling these two in a way. But Iqbal in his reconstruction, he has touched on one dimension. For example, he says that Jesus' whole point was about love, not law. And Moses, the Jewish tradition, has been fundamentally about law. But in Islam tried to see where the law and law and love, we can ihsan. That's why ihsan is what ihsan is the highest dimension, where love is at the center. But for all practical purposes, that code, that sharia, that law, that comes also first. But that is not the last. That is not in fact the apogee. That's not the climax. So we can say in Islamic tradition, if we try to use Christian terms, the Christic reality, that life principle, as Christ as vivifying principle, Islam uses other terms for that. But I think ontologically, since being is ultimately one, there is only Allah.
Yeah.
I was just reading, there's a wonderful book, Muhammad is Allah, by Ahmad Husuli. He has written a wonderful commentary on Quran also. His central thesis is that ordinarily when we translate kalima, shahada, there is no God but God. This is a fundamental mistake. If we must take words, give them respect, we must translate it, there is no God except Allah. And Allah is not a God. So, and we are not asked to believe in one God, as ordinarily we would like to put it. That's why in Ibn Arabi, we are only asked to believe in Haqq, one reality. That's why the whole idea of theism, atheism, this is transcended. And in fact, when we try to identify how God is known, He's known through the 99 names. And in those names, the first name, the central name, I think, is what we say life. Life is what makes all other, in a way, we can say other possible names too. That's how. So Jesus comes here. If we now then connect it to the ontological levels, so Jesus is this connecting link that makes life in a way possible.
Maruf Shah, I'm sorry to have asked such a difficult question, but your answer, alhamdulillah, is most illuminating, really.
Yes. So as you mentioned, the ruh, the life, the life of knowledge and life of sensory, you know, being sensory life. So that differentiation, um, yeah, it comes from that word wujud, being, consciousness. And yeah, there is actually at the moment a series of lecture going by Sayyid Hussain Nazar. The last lecture he gave, the first lecture, in there he explained this consciousness, this wujud, the being, the how ontologically, the maratibul wujud, the hierarchical consciousness, and then how he explained before Ruh, how the consciousness was created just with the knowledge, just with the knowledge. So he's saying that this prophetic hadith, where he says that God created his light, yeah, to the light of intellect. So that's why knowledge is also seen as a light. So knowledge is seen as a light, and Ruh is also seen as a light. So, so that's what we needed to understand, the consciousness. Without knowledge, you consciousness, how you know that you are conscious? He's talking about awareness and your will, and also various other component to define the consciousness.
So maybe this is where the muhi comes in.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
So this is where, the way I don't know, the first line, the
Of the
one
poem?
of the poem of the chapter,
Mm.
that he says that from the water of Mary, or from the breath of the Gabriel, in the form of mortal fashioned of clay, the spirit came into existence in an essence, purged of nature's taint, which is called Sijin. So he's saying that this body, clay body, which is the dark matter, is a Sijin, is the lowest of the low. But as soon as spirit got into it, the essence, it purged of the nature's taint. Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's what he's saying, that, but this light, the breath, which will be this ruh, which is brought by Gabriel, right? And which joined with the water of Mary, because Gabriel blown into in her womb, this spirit, as soon as that met, this this ruh came into being. The existence came into being in this plane. The ruh of so that's what that's one of the explanation of the sensory revival.
Because
But
otherwise,
yeah, but the other sensory revival, which is of course part of the ruh, which we have been discussing, that Jesus has this dimension of angelic dimension, which we also have. And this is the prophecy of Jesus, because Allah showed to humanity that you don't need a father to have a human being, because father's component is of course done through Gabriel, and father's component, um, what Gabriel brought is the ruh. So I wanted to read this hadith which I mentioned in the past. This hadith, which ruh is for our ruh, who brought that ruh? Because ruh, just like Gabriel brought the ruh of Jibril, Same, no, no, the Jew of Jesus, rule of Jesus, Gabriel brought it from Allah. Same way, our rule is brought to by an angel as well. This is
So when
I am reading from chapter Al Qadr Al Bukhari. There he narrated hadith. The narrated Abdullah said, Apostle, the truthful and truly inspired, said, each one of you collected in the womb of his mother for 40 days and then turns into a clot for an equal period of 40 days and turns into a piece of flesh for a similar period of 40 days. Then Allah sends an angel and orders him to write four things: the provision, his age, whether he will be of the wicked or blessed, and then the soul is brought into him.
Hmm.
You see, that clot of flesh, that's where blown the spirit, my spirit was blown into the womb of my mother, and that was carried by an angel. So that message, that is one of the another word of Jesus, or Jesus's creation and miracle, gave us this message. And another prophecy of Jesus was he gave the bushra to the humanity that Muhammad, in the name of Ahmed, will come in the name of Muhammad. Yeah, and it's in the Quran
uh-huh.
that he brought this bushra for the humanity. So that was one of the prophecy. And of course, uh, there are many other prophecy he brought um, through his being, right? Um, he is showing that this reviving of knowledge, which he did, just like, if you say Alchemy of Happiness in that book, the chapter 367, where Ibn Arabi mentioned about, um, that philosopher's stone, a prophet or an awliya can be a philosopher's stone. If you touch any metal with that stone, it become gold, right? So same way, if an awliya or if a insan, a camel touches a person's a heart, that heart become revived with a new rule of knowledge, and he can understand. Of course, he can see immediately and he is blind, he not seeing the reality. He immediately become alive and start seeing the reality,
Mm.
right? With your um, sensory life, you can't see it. You need to revive the ruh al qalb, which will allow you to see the divine. And that's why real shuhud happens. In our last lecture, I mentioned about this kitab of Hakim Tirmidhi, which is this Bayan al Farq Bain Sadr wal Qalb wal Fuad wal Lab, is saying that with the eye we see and with the qalb we know, but with the fuad, you have the spiritual vision,
Uh-huh.
the inner heart. So, and through the even through the Jesus's prophecy, another one is, of course, he showed that body is temporary. He went up without the body. He left his body behind, and then he will come down without birth, right? And that is how it is going to happen. So that is another thing he showed us in that story is Gabriel, who is an invisible being, who is an angel,
Mm.
but he he transformed into a human body and appeared in front of Mary as a human being.
Mm.
So that is another miracle Allah showed us
Mhm.
through the birth of Jesus,
Mm.
that this body is nothing but earthly thing, which is this made of this world. And of course, we adopt it, and it is a clothing around our room, our spirit.
Mm.
So, and also through Gabriel, no, no, through Jesus's message, another thing is, yes, To insan kamil, you don't have to manifest all names, but some names. When he was a prophet, he manifested some names, and when he comes later, he will manifest other names. For
Uh-huh.
example, in his life, when he came as a prophet and a Rasul, he, of course, didn't fight, didn't marry, those sort of things. But what Ibn Arabi mentioned is when he comes second time, he will do marry and he will do fight for the
This is
truth.
Jesus. Jesus.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jesus. So those sort of um, new prophecy he brought. And also in Quran, there's a verse, no one will know the last hour. But Ibn Arabi mentioned that it is only Jesus who will be given that knowledge. In the interpretation of Quranic verse, there is a verse, I can't recall at the moment, but I read it, that no one will know it except Jesus,
Really.
when that last hour will happen. Of course, um, the, yeah, that is the interpretation of the verse in the Quran, that Jesus will be given this privilege of, yeah, basically the Qiyamah when is going to happen. So those sort of prophecy is the thing needed to be understood through these messages of Jesus. Um, yeah, that's one of the point I wanted to mention.
Hmm.
Anything else anyone want to add? If not, then I will mention about this particular line where um, Ibn Arabi writes, um, just in the, I think on the second or third, I am just reading the Austin's The Bezels of Wisdom there, and it's saying that the, now the measure of life that pervades a creature is called divine, humanity being the locus in which the spirit inheres. In Arabic, he's saying that um, we will have this two-part self. One is the self lahutiya and the self nasutiya.
Is
The
this still in
divine
the chapter
self,
on Jesus, Noor?
yeah,
It's still in the chapter on Jesus you're reading from?
yeah, chapter in Genesis.
Uh-huh.
If you go into this second paragraph after the first poem, you can find in the Bedels of Wisdom, this book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is this Austin's book.
Mm-hmm.
Is saying that this particular the line, um, which is basically this word, which drawn my attention was this two-part self we have.
Uh-huh.
That is the one I wanted to touch on,
Uh-huh. And is
which
it
is
the first poem or the second
the
poem?
first poem. Yeah, first
Ah,
poem.
after the first
First
poem.
poem. He's
Okay.
saying that Fayaqul Ruhullah, not that one. Um, this word. Um, I wanted to touch few things. One is the Ruhullah, another is why he has been called these three things. One is um, one is um, you know, word of God,
Mm-hmm.
spirit of God, slave of God. These three
Yeah.
title he has.
Uh-huh.
Three titles.
Mm.
One is called word of God, Kalimatullah. Another one is spirit of God, Ruhullah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another there's Abdullah, right?
Yes.
Wahuwa Kalimatullah, Wahuwa Ruhullah, Wahuwa Abdullah. So those are the three titles Ibn Arabi mentioned in that chapter. And so I wanted to touch briefly on those three terminology. Um, yeah. So anyway, if anyone else wanted to go ahead, and then of course this line about as for revival by knowledge from spiritual death, it is that eternal, sublime, and luminous divine life, of which God says, who was dead and we made him alive again, and for whom we made a light, where with the work among the men. So this particular Quranic verse, Ibn Arabi mentioned about this second ruh, which is ruh related to knowledge, this
But
light of
Noor,
knowledge.
is it shown on that? You said you were going to possibly show that diagram or picture.
Oh, okay, okay.
No, but does it have those three uh, kalim, ruh, and abd on the diagram?
Uh, no, diagram is the basically human psychological model. If you
Ah,
want, I can share it with
oh
you.
no, well, it doesn't matter. Maybe it's not relevant.
Yeah, I'll talk into it about the ruh, this two ruh, which I read last time
Mm-hmm.
in our lecture in the last month,
Mm,
um, where I quoted from this chapter,
mm.
and then I referred to those Quranic verses. I may go into it. If anyone has no question, then I can go into it if you like.
Ah, let's see if anyone has any questions.
Yeah,
Does anyone have any questions or comments they'd like to make?
if not, then I can share my
Mm-hmm.
screen and I can go into that um, that diagram, which is basically I was talking about this verse. This is the diagram I showed in our last session. As you saw last time, I was showing this is the Islamic psychological model of soul. You know, the nafs.
Mm-hmm.
We have a two-part nafs. One part is, of course, in the alame malakut, alam al-amr, alam al-mastur, the world of command, world of dominion, hidden worlds. That's where ruh exists, the dot line. And the qalb, aql, nafs, part of the nafs, is in the alam al-barzakh. So we live in the three world. That's what our discussion was. And
Mm-hmm.
alam al-malakut, and the alam al-mulk is here. Alam al-mulk, alam al-dunya, alam al-manzur, which is visible world. This is where our nafs al-ammara, and this is where, of course, we have a genie component. We mentioned three dimension of us. When I mentioned about chapter 10 from Kaisari, um, Muqaddama, which is the again commentary on Fusus by um, Kaisari. So from Kaisari's book, chapter 10, I mentioned about as Ruhul Azam, the Supreme Spirit, as a part of it, how human Ruh is interconnected with the Ruhul Azam, and how our um, yeah our self, we mentioned in there that we had a three component. One is the zini component, which has a satanic nature, which draw us towards this sijin, the one in the mention on that as soon as it enter into our body, the ruh, then it become alive. So because our body is dark
Mm-hmm.
and also dense, whereas this world alam al khayal, alam al alam al mithal, the alam al barzakh is the subtle world, which we go when we dream and sleep. We go to that world. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what we discussed at that time and in our last session. So
And Noor,
there we mentioned about this particular Jesus chapter, which we said anyone who revives a dead soul with the life of knowledge with regard to particular question, masala hassa, relating to the knowledge of God, has brought him to life by it, and he has a light with which he works among the people, that is, among those resembling him. So this is the part, um, of course, Ibn Arabi's mentioned in that chapter. And with regard to that, I was referring to this verse. So I will share from the Quran directly. Let's go there. So I'll just take you to the Quranic website where I'll be sharing that verse. This is the verse I wanted to share, which is from Surah Nahl. And here says, Yunazzilul malaikatu birruh min amrihi. So this is the part I wanted to highlight, that when our heart is ready, or we come in touch with a sheikh or awliya or a prophet who can revive our heart when our heart is ready, that's when Allah sent angel with a ruh from his Alam al-Amr, from Alam al-Amr, which is the world of command. From there, this ruh of knowledge is brought by Malaika again. And this is what, um, as I mentioned, Zamhuri, of course, in the translation, it says, angels of descent with this divine inspiration. So it can be one translation of Ruh, divine inspiration. Another is the Ruh of knowledge, which I mentioned about um, Jamshakari, Jamakshari, who is one of the Mufassir, very well known. So he's quoting by this translator, who is this Muhammad Asad, Jew for Wis, that was, of course, a citizen of Pakistan. As you know, he was actually originally Austrian Jew, but he converted, and then he was he was a journalist in Reuters, and then he learned Arabic, and then, of course, he became citizens. He was also constitution, Pakistan constitution. He actually helped to write Pakistan's constitution. So this is his translation, Muhammad Asad. Muhammad Asad, as you know. So he's quoting Jamakhshari, point out in connection with the above verse as well as with the first sentence in this another verse. It gives life to hearts that were dead in their ignorance. So if your heart is dead in ignorance, they are given a life of knowledge or divine inspiration, you can call it. But this is happens by an insan kamil, and that's what I wanted to refer to this verse. The other verse over there quoted was this one, which is related to this. This is the one, ruh again. Min amrina, which is the world of Amr. وَكَذَلِكَ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ رُوحًا min amrina. And this is also a verse which is a life-giving message he is calling. But Ibn Arabi is calling this the light, but the life which revives you in knowledge. And this is when you can see through your inner heart the real. This is where I mentioned this, said that die before you die, then you can be, will have a rebirth, a spiritual rebirth. That spiritual rebirth is nothing but rebirth with the knowledge, which is that line you mentioned in that poem, which you mentioned, reviving repose. Yeah.
Yes.
So that is the word, the one I wanted to mention. And also I wanted to mention about this Nurus Samawati wal Ard, this the light verse, where he mentioned about, of course, Misbah is one of the mentioned, the lamp, and then Mishka, which is the, of course, the niche, and then the glass. All those thing, Nurun ala Nur. This is the one Nur is the Ruh which angel comes at the birth time. The other Nur is when you revive again. That is the Nur, light of knowledge, or Ruh al Ilm. Because Allah is saying, Innamal ilmu indallah. No knowledge come to you but from Allah. So anyway, I will not go detail on this one because I did discuss that here our soul has been compared with Shajaratun Mubarakatun. This is the interpretation by Kashani in his Ta'wil al-Quran, in that book. He's saying that our soul can be compared as a tree, because tree has branches, our soul has branches. The external branches are our five senses: touching, smelling, tasting, seeing, hearing, those sort of things. And then inner is this our khayal, imagination, our common sense. Those are our inner branches. So that's why, and then he mentioned about why he called about zaytun or olive, because this fire, which is the himma, and this willpower, and of course intellect, that is the fire which needs, of course, this movement in us, and to make our consciousness to be aware of all the reality, aspects of reality. So yeah, those are the three verses I wanted to mention.
Oh, thank you, Noor.
With regard to that particular line, which was that the revival by knowledge,
Yes.
yeah, from the spiritual death. So yeah, that's what I wanted to touch on. And if anyone else wanted to touch other things in that chapter, yes, go for it.
Well, we've only got, it's time, Noor.
Yeah, it's time. Oh, okay, it's already time. So in that case, we can ask Brother Yusuf Amin if he wanted to say something, yeah, on that chapter, or any of the things we have discussed that you might have questions or comments.
I had a question.
Yes, Brother Mikhail. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum.
Yeah.
Just related to what you were talking about, and also Maruf Bhai earlier, in the beginning of the chapter regarding the moment of the Spirit's pervasion into Mary, it says in the Austin translation, right when Gabriel comes to her as a perfectly formed human, she imagined that he was some ordinary man who desired to lie with her. Accordingly, she sought refuge from him in God totally, so that he might rid her of his attentions, knowing that to be forbidden. Thus she attained to perfect presence with God, which is the pervasion of the unseen spirit. So my question was, because you were relating about how the Spirit revives the dead to life, and it revives the dead soul ultimately to the true life of Allah. So I was just wanted to understand the purity of the receptacle. We talk about when the Spirit comes, but I just want to understand, there's a lot in this chapter as well as in the Quran about how the soul has to prepare itself, purify itself, virginize itself like Mary. And the very last thing before this moment of the reception of Spirit is this absolute refuge in Allah.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to understand, because then I was thinking of the Quran, and the Quran's last two surahs are about the refuge, the dawn, and as well as the human being. So And because Allah is the first and the last, and these two surahs seem to seal the Quran, or maybe seal the Surah Fatiha, in terms of the human being's perfect state of reception is this state of refuge. How do you understand that? Especially because it's the last two surahs. Does that make sense? Sorry.
Well,
Yes,
it
that's
makes
a very
perfect
beautiful.
sense.
Mark, do
Yeah.
you want to
Well, I think
respond?
in a way, Mikhail, you've responded to your own question because the situation is very vivid. It says in the Fusus Al Hikam, in the commentary by Abdullah Bosnevi, it says that Mary didn't have the equipment to know that Gabriel was an angel. So
Mm,
she did what she'd been prepared to do and educated to do, which was to take refuge in him from
mm,
something she didn't understand or even feared because she feared he was a man coming to wanting to lie with her. So in a way, it's an illustration of what to do or what happens when we're in this world and something happens which is not according to how we've been taught. We can take refuge in him. And once we take refuge in him, then, according to the way it's described in Fusus Al Hikam, it was Gabriel who, by his very presence, even though she didn't know, who caused her then to take that refuge and have an effect on her such that she was prepared to hear what he had to say when he said next, I am only a messenger coming to bring you Jesus from your Lord, like that. Do you see what I mean? So you, in a way, you set us up by talking about what you talked about, the beginning of the Quran and the end two surahs, and Mary acts as an illustration of exactly how to be in that
mm,
situation. And it it resonates with the first line of Mevlana's poem, where he says, become Mary. So the three steps are become Mary. So be
mm,
educated, be prepared, be virginal, whatever that means, and how to do it. Then everybody has their own way, maybe. Receive Gabriel. So Gabriel has to be received. He can't just stand outside the door. He has to be, so
mm.
that you may give birth to the Jesus of your being. There has to be preparation. Exactly right. So thank you for drawing our attention to that because there we are. Those are the steps.
Yeah, that is one of the important point actually. What brother Mikhail has mentioned
Mm,
about the human constitution. This is the one Ibn Arabi mentioned because at the time when she saw a man in front of her hujra, because as you know she was in a retreat,
mm,
and when which is everything's locked,
mm,
but she is suddenly saw a man in front of her, and that gave her this fear and then horror, and that's when she sought refuge to the divine, and she wanted to maintain her mutahara, this state of purity,
mm,
because in the second line of the poem he said, the takawwana ruhu fi zatin mutahharatin, that that she was um, needed to stay in that pure state
mm,
so that it's not polluted. And Ibn Arabi is saying, if when she was in a horror state, if Gabriel blown the spirit into her, then the nature of Jesus would have been different.
ah,
He's saying that Jesus would have turned out too surly for any to bear. So Jesus's character, Jesus's demeanor, Jesus's disposition would have been rude and ill-tempered if Gabriel blown the spirit into the state when Mary was in an unsettled state,
mm.
in a
Do you,
horrific state. So
Noor,
Uh,
do you think then that the two verses from the Quran that you read out in Arabic in Ibn Arabi's passages from the Futuhat, telling his readers how to be, There are
Yes,
two of them. It says one of them is, well, some people translate it as taqwa, fear God, and he will endow you with discrimination. Because you
exactly.
mentioned horror.
Yeah,
Fear God, he will endow you with discrimination. Fear God or have taqwa towards God, and he will teach you. So
yes,
that's exactly what happened with Mary.
exactly,
She,
exactly.
yeah.
And also this story of Jesus, Allah wanted us to know that our composition, whatever is happening, so in our demeanor, is influenced by the state of mind of our parents.
Oh,
That's why we needed to be in a pure and good mindset.
uh-huh.
Otherwise, we will inherit bad things in our constitution.
Mm,
This story, Ibn Arabi giving us that prophecy as well, right?
mm.
Yeah. Mikhail Bhai, do you wanted to have any other question on that?
Yeah, I just, from what Mark said, it just struck me that this is the very same divine taqwa or terror that Rasulullah experiences also when Gabriel comes to
Yes. Oh,
examine
yes.
his, and he is absolutely in a state of absolute fear of what this is, and he denies that it is Gabriel, and he runs until his wife confirms that this is not anyone but an angel, and you are a prophet. uh, so it's the same sense. So from what Mark said, it's the taqwa also reminds me that they're in such pure humility,
Uh-huh.
because I feel like if it was me, my nafs would say, oh yes, Gabriel, it's about time, I've been waiting.
Ah,
I would take, but for them, their souls are so pure, it would never occur to them that this could in fact be the absolute divine presence
oh,
coming to greet them, to come to them. In fact, it's the very opposite that they assume, because they have no sense of themselves, I think. I mean, that's what
uh-huh.
I understand from the Virgin Mary and our prophet.
Mm,
So thank you, Mark,
beautiful.
for that.
Oh, thank you. Goodness.
Anyone else have any other question or comments? Okay, I
I had
think
one
if,
question. Oh,
okay,
sorry.
sure, sure, go ahead.
uh, this whole notion of the breath, um, that this is breathed into Mary. It's blown in. The spirit is blown into Mary. Since we talk about the Nafas ar-Rahman, right? Ultimately, this corresponds to Allah's breath of the All Merciful, which Ibn Arabi speaks of.
Mm.
If this is the breath of the All Merciful, then is the breath itself, as Nafas al Muhammadiyah?
Ah, Noor, I'm
Yeah,
not
on that
quite sure.
point, of course, as you know about the one we mentioned about um, this five presences, right?
Mm,
This there is a ta'ayyunat, la ta'ayyun, the absolute presence, and then ta'ayyun al-awwal and ta'ayyun al-thani, right?
Mm.
So ta'ayyun al-awwal is the Nur Muhammadi. So that's why in Ibn Arabi's writing, he mentioned that our body, father is Adam, because he is the first who have been divine spirit has been blown into this dark body, which is this fakhar and salsal, this clay, which is just like a potter make this pottery from clay. They need a bit of fire, so that sort of um, so we had all those four elements in the body, and that's when the spirit has been blown. But that spirit itself is from the Nur Muhammadi. So as a result, of course, um, this breath, which is ruh and rih, as you know, ruh, it has a link to the
Ri.
wind or breath. And that's why Ibn Arabi called every breath is, of course, part of the Nafas Rahman, which is the breath of the merciful. So that's how, so our father Ruhani is Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam,
Uh-huh.
and father Jismani is Hazrat Adam Alayhi Salam. So from that perspective, yes, our breath is Nafas Rahman, and which is um, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's ruh linked to him. That's what this we discussed in our last session. The Ruhul Azam and the first intellect, and the link to that Father Ruhani, that is the Ab Ruhani, is Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That's Ibn Arabi's reading, teaching I learned from, and there is a lecture on it. Our first Arabic, MIAS Arabic lecture, which was done by, yeah, Munir Eshki. If you want to know more about this two-part, the Jasmani, Ab Jismani versus Ab Ruhani, I refer you to that Arabic lecture. Yeah, you
So
can
Michael
listen it.
can look that up on the Ibn Arabi Society
Yeah,
website.
yeah, yeah. There is a MIAS Arabic um, YouTube channel. If you want, I can send it to you. Yeah, but it's Arabic.
Also,
You just put the translator on, and you will hear some of it. If you do not understand Arabic, yeah.
right. Also, Alam there's also a technical term, Ru Muhammadiyah, right? That is very explicit. That it's in fact the Ru itself is nothing but the Ru Muhammadiyah. Have you come across that term?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
corresponds to Hakika Muhammadiyah, Nur Muhammadiyah, kind of as a trifecta.
Yes, yes. There is a whole chapter on it. This Wilaya and Nubuwa, that book, there is a detailed chapter on it. Hakika Muhammadiyah. Yeah.
Yeah, also one thing that you mentioned that struck me, that you mentioned how Sayyidina Isa is both the word, he's the word of God, he's a word of God, a spirit of God, and he's a slave of God. I recalled from that that he's also with Mary a sign of God, right? But
Yes.
here it's not individually. Somehow this mysterious complementarity of Mary and Jesus, son of Mary, is a part of his divine constitution.
Yes. Yeah, but of course, main thing is people are not seeing the full dimension of it. So that's why they get confused with, um, yeah, confused with the part, some of the divine manifestation through him. Especially, he has this power, kudra, to do, to make the dead alive. That power, people think he is a hulul. Ibn Arabi clearly mentioned about it, about that. بعضهم فيه إلى القول بالخلود وإنه هو الله بما أحيا به الموت. So this is hulul, no reincarnation. He clearly mentioned it. That yeah, Quran has of course clear ayat about it as well. Yeah.
But I think Mikhail's suggestion is reflected about Mary and Jesus, and the connection is reflected in Mevlana's poem when he says to the reader, become Mary, male or female, become
Yes.
Mary, receive Gabriel, so that you may give birth to the Jesus of your being. I mean, without wanting to reduce it to a single little sentence that sums everything up, that relationship, if the reader or the hearer of what Mevlana is saying is to become Mary, that tells you something about the nature of the human being as opposed to Jesus's conception. But it tells us if we want to give birth to the Jesus of our being, we have to be both. We have to receive Gabriel and we have to become Mary, which means she's totally human, Gabriel assumes the form of a human, but is spirit. So for us, there's a union there of both. And that's what Ibn Arabi, Shaykh Al Akbar says in the poem, be real and be created. Remember in the poem, I don't know what the Arabic is, but it says halfway through almost of the first poem we read, which is the second poem in the chapter, be real, therefore, or so in Arabic, again, fa, be real and be created, so that you become, no, what is it? Yes. So be real and be created, and you will be, through God, all compassionate. Rahmana. There's the Rahman, Nafasa Rahmana coming in
Yes.
the very line.
Yes, that's very good.
Uh-huh.
So would Mary, in some sense, be considered an aspect of the Insan al Kamal?
This is
Because
controversial. I think that Todd Lawson, has put forward the idea that the 28th prophet, because there's only 27 prophets in
Yes.
Fusus Al Hikam, one
Yes.
proposition is that Mary is the 28th prophet. The other proposition is that it's the reader who's the 28th prophet, because what God enacts is potentially in the reader. So that links it again to Mevlana's poem, Become Mary, receive Gabriel, in order you may give birth to the Jesus of your being. You are the reader of Fusus Al Hikam, for instance.
That's
And
true.
I suppose every soul has to, if we are to take the Fusus, understand the Fusus, that every soul has to become Mary or the substance of Mary to give birth to any one of the 27 prophets.
Well, I think so.
Because
myself.
the prophet and I think Dr. Nasser also makes that parallel between the Quran's reception to the prophet as being like the Virgin Mary.
Precisely.
In that way, they both are receiving the divine word within them.
And you drew our attention to that earlier with Gabriel, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's response to Gabriel when Gabriel first appeared. So as exactly, and in fact, Abdullah Bosnevi in his commentary of Fusus Al Hikam in this chapter brings that point out, that of the parallel between Gabriel appearing to Prophet Muhammad and Gabriel appearing to Mary. Yes, definitely. Goodness.
Okay. If no more questions, then we can conclude our session.
Thank you, Noor.
Thank you.
And thank you,
everyone.
everybody. Thank you.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you, Yusuf Amin,
Okay.
too.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Alaikum
barakatuh.
salam.